What is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back here with some more SilentHillF gameplay for you. And today I'm showcasing my review on the game itself, the latest entry in the Silent Hill franchise. Now here's how it's going to go. I'm going to tell you at first the good, the parts I did like, and afterwards I'm going to tell you about the parts I didn't like, the bad, as well as give my ultimate do I recommend it or not at the end. I will do my best to try to keep spoilers at a minimum, not showcase off too many things. But last, that's simply how it's going to be: good, bad, and then do I recommend it at the end. So without further ado, let's get into this. Now, one thing I do want to state right from the record is that this is a review on this game. This is not a comparison on the rest of the franchise or the ill-advised. Is this a Silent Hill game or not? Because that can be done for another video for another day itself. I just want to talk about whether the game is any good or not, because that's the most important thing. So I just wanted to state that for the record right from the beginning. Without further ado, let's get right into this review. So let's start with the good, and the good instantly starts with the world itself. I do love the world of Silent Hill, especially in a Japanese aesthetic, and I'll admit I am a sucker for a Japanese aesthetic, and I definitely like how kind of the flowers and the vines, when they do start to take over or they've been there and they start to grow even faster, looks with the rest of the game. Whether you're in a schoolyard or in the mountains or in the town itself or you're in the other world, it looks very, very pleasing visual to the eye. And I like how over time, as you kind of backtrack through different areas, things slowly start to change, and it's definitely a very creepy but also a very visually appealing aesthetic to look at. So I'm always interested, as you know, when I would travel through an area first time, realizing later on in chapters that they would change. And I do like wandering the streets of this town. It definitely feels like you're very isolated, but ultimately in a world that definitely is going to hunt you with everything you possibly can think of. In the other world, I definitely did like that as well, because it kind of gives me that creepy shrine at night feeling where so many things can happen, so many different things can go wrong, but it definitely looks appealing to the naked eye. And whether it's an aesthetic of being outside in a shrine or inside, it always gave me that feeling that no matter where the game took you, I really enjoyed from a visual standpoint looking at it, and the world was interesting as it changed around me. I definitely like to learn more about the lore of what was going on, and you know, having a really appealing visual aesthetic really did wonders for this game. But it's not just the world itself; it's what's occupying the world that also is interesting. As we have, you know, some enemy roll calls, and I definitely like how the enemies looked as well. They're grotesque, they're different, they have different patterns. But I'll tell you one thing, one of the most intense moments that I really like is actually very early on in the game. It's where you encounter the first four-legged guys, and what's cool about them is that they gave me a really good moment that combined two elements I really like. One, that intense moment of them stalking you when you're probably not ill-advised at dealing with them at the time, as well as trying to do a puzzle with this really insane, really well-done music that gets louder the closer they get. So when I'm trying to like find a puzzle piece here, the music gets higher and faster, and it really puts you in a very intense moment that's executed really well, really brilliantly, and kind of early in the game, so I definitely do appreciate that stuff. As for the puzzles, well, it's Silent Hill. You obviously got to have puzzles, and you obviously have different difficulty parameters for the puzzles, but the one that definitely stood out the most for me was the Scarecrow puzzle, just from the fact that if you pick the wrong Scarecrow, there is a penalty for that, because the Scarecrow will come to life and start to attack you. So this was one of the more unique puzzles that I definitely did like, that definitely had a really cool vibe to it. And I think a lot of people are going to like this. It's definitely a crowd pleaser puzzle for most. So it definitely does have one of those things where you got to really read into what the puzzle is, or you're going to have to pay a mistake and you're going to have to fight a battle. So this one was definitely executed really well. And in combat, you obviously have a means to defend yourself and fight against other enemies. But not only that, you also have a variety of your weapons. They're all melee. There is no distance weapons, which I'll get to in the future of this video. But you know, you have your pipes, your kitchen knives, your sledgehammers, your axes, and obviously they have durability and stuff like that. You also have a means to improve yourself in battle, as well as your survivability. As you collect items, you can actually sell. So it's not just your inventory is holding healing items. you also going to hold treasures that you find, and when you do find these treasures, you can actually go to your save point shrine, which is basically a place where you can produce this currency called faith. And with faith, you can purchase a lot of things of it. Faith can actually restore your sanity meter, which you need to use the focus on. You also can use faith to buy Omamori's little equipable talismans that can give you extra bonuses, as well as upgrade your base stats of your character. Now, some of these items that you can sell do help you. Like, they can heal you, restore your stamina, restore your faith, or not faith, but your sanity. You also have items that are only used for selling, so you will have to make a little bit of choice with that. The only thing I guess I kind of wish they kind of did is I wish that these treasure items are only for selling didn't occupy an inventory slot, just so you wouldn't have to be constantly backtracking to constantly be making space in case you did want to hold more healing items or something like that. That's my only thing I would change with that category. As for the enemies, I did like a lot of their designs, as well as how they're all kind of different in terms of how they progress after you. Some of them do that slow, staggered walk towards you. Others, like this four-legged guy, who probably was the one who pissed me off and frustrated most, can sometimes be really, really fast, especially with their lunge and how they just chase after you. But I did like how they're all kind of different. I like the looks of them. I like how they kind of move. And in terms of the bosses, I think the bosses look really dope as hell. I think they look really cool. I won't showcase them in this video, but they are very cool and it is a spectacle to look at. So overall, the enemies did leave an impact with me. Sometimes they can be a little frustrating at moments, but I'll get to that more later on in this video. For my next part, I want to talk about that I definitely like is the story, or in case how the story progresses. So I'll be the first one to admit, a lot of people I've heard are a little bit divided in terms of the story. Not the story itself, which I think is fine, but how it's told. In terms of when you play the game, basically you play as Hinako, and one of the big themes of this game is she wants the ability to choose her future and her path in life for herself and not have it forced upon her. She wants the ability to have a choice and not be like, hey, this is how your life's going to be. We're going to decide it for you. Even if her choice is not necessarily the best thing for her, she wants that ability for herself. And you go through the game, and when you beat it, you kind of feel like you got a piece of the puzzle and not the whole thing. That's because it's a game where you're going to have to beat it a few times to get the entire picture of the story. Because it's not one of those stories that's this, they give you multiple endings. But here's the cool part that I personally like. It's not that the ending changes. The game changes. Not saying the whole entire game is drastically different, but scenes are different. Dialogues are different. Cutscenes are even different. And when you get another one of these endings, it's like you get another piece to the puzzle. You get a little bit more added context to a situation or a scene that may have didn't make sense at first. And I do like that because I think it definitely increases replayability. Yes, I understand some people just want to be one and done, and I respect that. My best friend's like that. He's a one and done guy. He just wants to play a game once, beat it, and that's the end. That's why he's never beaten the original Resident Evil 2, and I make fun of him about it every single day. But getting on track, one of the cool parts I do like about this is when you beat the game, you get the only thing you get. But when you play a New Game Plus and you're going through a game, you might see a scene that might seem similar. If you go to skip it, it'll let you know if there's any new content that you have not seen. And I think that's incredibly helpful and very much valued here. So you can just go through the scenes you've already seen, you're familiar with, now if you want to watch them again. Or you can just, hey, this is a new scene, it's got new context. So I think that's really cool. That's why I enjoyed the game, because every playthrough I kind of learned a little bit more and got a little bit more context in terms of what was going on. I will say, if I did have one minor complaint with the story, it's I wish we had a little bit more time with Hinako's friends. I think Shu gets the most. I think he's fine. Renko also gets a decent amount of time, but the other one, Sakako, I don't think gets enough time, and I feel like that would have made it even greater, a little bit better appeal. I think that's my only minor complaint with the story, but I definitely did enjoy the story. I definitely enjoyed going through and emphasizing through Hinako's struggles, and I think she is a very compelling and interesting protagonist. But that'd be my one thing I wish they could have done to make it even better, is just give the friends, as well as the parents as well, a little bit more time. I think that they had a little bit more time I think it could have been even better, but maybe that's where the whole playing through multiple times, you get a more context. Because one other thing I do highly recommend, I think a lot of people probably skip it or don't even realize it themselves, is the journal is a very important thing in this game because it's always updating, and you'll know it updates when it has a circle around it. But the journal, every time you get something new, it'll add on, and it'll give you that further context. So when you get to a new game plus 2, where you get to the part where you can get the true ending, as I like to call it, you'll have a lot more context, not just on characters, but the monsters, information around the area, as well as other things. But this journal is very much valued, so I definitely highly recommend just take time, read it, so you get a little bit extra context. It's not a game that where everything is going to necessarily be spelled out for you, but it also gives you a little bit more things, so you can probably understand a scene that may seem foreign for some people. I think some people will have a hard time understanding, just because this is a Japanese game, a Japanese culture type game. Some people foreign of that culture might not understand certain things that happen. It might be a little bit kind of misunderstand a sequence, but I definitely do like this whole journal. Definitely very helpful in how it updates, as well as the map. The map is also always updating, so if you come across something you didn't understand what it was at the time, it's always going to be marked on your map, or maybe have a question mark and it'll have a design of what it was or what's blocked off at that time, and it changes over time. So that's definitely something I really do appreciate in this game. Now that we've taken the good, we also got to take the good with the bad. So here are the things I think could have used some work. One is the stuttering. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it can get a little bit disorienting at times, so be mindful of that. The other is what you're seeing right here, is if you're swinging your weapon and you're close to any type of wall or physical object, it will ricochet backwards towards you and you won't get the hit off. And this can be incredibly frustrating, especially when you're in a tight area. More likely this happens more in the other world than in the town, but it's really annoying, especially when you have the enemy that's really fast and you know if you get this hit off, you could probably kill them or at least stun them to finish them off. And then when you get it hit back, it completely defeats all of your momentum. So that's something I feel like needs to be fixed, as well as the whole logic that they can hit you through the walls, but you can't. And I guess one other thing that's really annoying in terms of the whole mechanics is when you go to a part where you can go underneath a log or in between a wall, or you open up a door animation, the enemies can still hit you through it and take some health. So even when you're already off the thing, it's still kind of a cheap way. So I feel like that's something that needs to get fixed over time, because that's a little bit cheap and bad. But if you haven't already noticed, most of these complaints all stem through the same thing that a lot of people are very divided upon, and that is the combat. Now, I want to say this, don't jump out of your screen when I say this. I don't think the combat is bad. Now, I don't think it's good, but it's not bad. I think it's servable and manageable. But here's the problem, all right? For the majority of the game, the combat, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have any type of problem that makes you go, oh, it's the worst thing, or I hate it, I can't stand it. But there are moments in this game, more towards the end parts of the game, and if you know, you know, one of them is you're watching on the screen right now, is there are moments in this game where you are forced to fight. So where the combat turns really terrible is these few moments in the game, more towards the end, is when you have no choice but to fight, and there's more than 3 enemies on the screen. That is where the combat turns very, very unlikable and extremely frustrating, and not done in an organic way, but in an inorganic, forced, unnatural, artificial way. Because as I said before, I don't have a problem with the stamina. I don't have a problem with weapon durability, dodging, countering, stuff like that. But where it becomes a problem is when you have multiple enemies on the screen and you have no choice but to fight them. Because when you don't have a choice and you can't run by them and you have to fight them, having more enemies on the screen, more than 3, is where this game really, the combat really becomes an issue. Because you're not really tailor-made to be doing all that dodging. When you do lock onto the camera, when you have that many enemies, it's easy to get like kind of either tethered to that one enemy you're trying to get away from, or it just dances all over the place. So it can be a very frustrating experience. When I played this game on Lost in Fog difficulty to get the platinum, these were the parts I feared the most. And it was actually the Otherworld part before the whole, you're chasing after the fog monster sequence that really frustrated me the most, where I was about to throw my controller out the window because I'm just like, this is BS. Because at that time I'm trying to bolster up my healing supply so I can get through the final boss fight. But yeah, as I said before, I feel like that's a issue where they have to understand that, with the way they design the combat, you can't force people. If you want to do a force fight segment, you can't have that many enemies in that situation at the very least, because it can get incredibly frustrating. Even having the perfect setup, I had all the Omomoris, I had everything maxed out, it was still very frustrating, but not a good frustration. I mean, survival horror games are supposed to have frustrating moments, but this wasn't one that felt organic. And as I said, I don't want to give the notion that's how the whole game is, because a lot of times you can easily run past all the enemies, but this whole part towards the end of the game, there's a few segments that will desperately tie your patience, and I hope that they take the criticism from that point and understand that they can't design the things like that. I think one thing that may have helped a little bit more is if you had some type of distance weapon, like a throwing knife or something like that. Just something where you can attack from a distance, because when you have to get up close and then you have enemies surrounding you from this big enemy that spawns non-stop enemies, and with the way the camera works and it gets tethered to you, it definitely can turn into a frustrating experience. So my recommendation, though, is if you're someone who just wants to enjoy the game, enjoy the story, I would definitely play on story difficulty, because hard and Lost in Fog, definitely for these parts, can be very frustrating. I mean, you can try them, and if you can't do them, lower the difficulty. But yeah, they can be incredibly annoying, especially when the enemies can constantly grapple you and take so much health. Not to mention, another thing that I wish they would change is, going back to boss fights, is I like them. I like the scope and spectacle of them, but I wish that they didn't have so many hits to them. They take so many hits before they fall down. It got to a point where I'm not good at these type of dodge forever encounter type games. I know a lot of people want to compare them to certain other things, but I'm not that great at them. It got to the point where I was about mastered a lot of these bosses where I wouldn't take a hit, but eventually I would have to take a hit, because it's I can't be perfect forever, and the bosses, just especially on the harder difficulties, they take way too many hits. They definitely need to tone that down a little bit, and hopefully they can understand these criticisms for when they make the next Silent Hill game. Is that I think a lot of these things can be done. I think they can be executed a lot better. But just note that, hey, difficulty needs to be organic, not inorganic. And here, the whole combat system kind of works against you. It's fine for about 85% of the game, but the few segments for the last part of the game, it really rears its ugly head. So I just want to make that point clear. I think you can easily get by a lot of things and run past a lot of things, but there will be moments in the game where you are forced to fight. Be aware. So I definitely recommend, if you don't want to do that struggle, do it on story mode, because even on story mode, it definitely still has its frustration, especially doing it for the first time. But alas, I've gotten through my bad, so now I get to, do I recommend it or not? Despite the few frustrations I had with the combat towards the end of the game, I definitely do highly recommend it. I like the fact that they aren't afraid to experiment and try different things in this franchise. I know that may push a few others away, and I get it, I understand it, and I respect it. But from a game standpoint, I enjoyed my experience, and I'm all for them trying different things. We already know they're going to remake the original Silent Hill. They're going to make brand new Silent Hills. But I'm all for them trying different things. I do highly recommend this game. I think it's a fine addition to the franchise, as well as the horror genre itself. And I can't wait to see what else they got cooked up for. And I never thought I'd say this, but I guess after selling 1 million copies in a few days, even faster than Silent Hill 2 Remake, the Silent Hill franchise is officially back. But that is going to be it. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Hopefully I can see you guys back next one. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you guys later. Peace.